Welcome to the business of NIL. My name is Ahmed, and today we have a very special guest. Our guest today is Keirsten, the founder and CEO of LRT Sports. LRT Sports is a ratings and review site for college coaches. They also help guide athletes through the college journey and help them understand college sport. So Keirsten's already in the house, so let's bring her on. Here we go. Keirsten is about to join us. Here.
Hey,
Keirsten, how you doing? How's things?
great. How you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. How's
Awesome.
things? What's been happening?
Not much, just living in Tampa, so it's been pretty nice out. Can't complain. But yeah, obviously exciting news going on with NIL and everything, so super pumped to kind of dive into that.
Absolutely, crazy times in the world of NIL. Why don't we start with a bit about yourself and your background, and then we can get into all the NIL stuff.
Sure, absolutely. So I am the founder and CEO of LRT Sports, and it is a rating and review website for college coaches. So college head coaches, and we're soon moving into assistant coaches, strength and training coaches, and anybody else that's associated with the collegiate level kind of, staff and everything else. And we started in 2014, and we've also been a content site as well. So we've done a lot of content creation about recruiting, about NIL as well now, and just kind of everything to do with college athletics.
Very, very nice. So you've been in the industry for a long time. You've seen many, many transitions happen. So what would you say is the biggest thing that's changed other than NIL from 2014 and until now?
Yeah, I think recruiting is the number one answer for that, especially because with recruiting, usually there was this really rigid structure as far as, okay, you're going to go visit a school, you're going to go do this, this is how we're going to kind of evaluate you as a recruit. But since COVID happened, that's really kind of been blown up in a lot of different ways. And you see a lot of times that, and for a long period of time, athletes and coaches weren't even allowed to kind of see each other in person. They weren't allowed to go on campus. Coaches weren't allowed to evaluate high school players and everything else. So I think that forced a lot of coaches to take advantage of some technologies like Zoom and FaceTime and a lot of other things that they didn't typically do before. And it also forced them to kind of reflect on how they wanted to evaluate players if they weren't able to see them in person. So obviously a lot of highlight tapes and conversations and everything else. So I think that was definitely one of the biggest.
Yeah, we're just rendering. She'll be back. Just give her a minute. Yeah, unfortunately, I think Keirsten has had a bit of an incident there. Let's bring her back in. Let's bring you back in, Keirsten.
Yeah, sorry about that. Kicked me off, but I'm back.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
but no,
Yeah,
totally good. No, but I think that was really the biggest thing that has changed, outside of NIL.
awesome. Could you walk us through step by step why athletes come to LRT Sports and how they can best use LRT Sports?
For sure. So I think, the biggest thing is having the coach ratings available to them. So for college athletes, being able to go on, kind of share your voice, whether it's through content or rating your college coach or, like I said, strength and training coach or other staff. And then, from the high school and parent side, actually reviewing those ratings. And I think even if you're a college athlete and you're looking to transfer, or you're looking to get into coaching yourself and you kind of want to see what it's about with all the other coaches, I think viewing those ratings is definitely super important. So anybody that's kind of in that space and they want to learn more about a coach or a program or anything else, I think, that's the number one thing. And then of course the content side. So looking into our recruiting information, we have, at this point, hundreds of interviews with student athletes, professional athletes, Olympians, just about their recruiting process and what they did to get to that next level. And those are the two main things that I would say. But, like we were talking about, we just launched NIL Academy, which dives into name, image, and likeness, which Katie Lever, who has been, instrumental in that field and an advocate for student athletes since the beginning of all these conversations. And she's worked with a lot of policymakers and everything. Her and I kind of like worked on that together. And she did this for LRT Sports, put together this awesome 10-part series where people are able to go on and really learn about NIL, the history, what's happening. There's a Q&A session on there and everything else, and kind of diving into what it means to be a student athlete that has access to their name, image, and likeness now.
Fantastic. So can you just tell us a bit more about the Academy and how it'll help students and basically what it'll prevent them from doing?
Yeah, for sure. So first and foremost, the Academy is just kind of like a micro learning series. It's a 10-part series that you're able to go on and view video instruction, and then we have supplemental kind of activities and write-ups as well that kind of come along with it. And once you go through the Academy, like the goal is to basically be armed with the knowledge in order to understand what it is that you need to do to be successful with NIL, and then also kind of understand all the fights that athletes have put up through over the years and all the history of everything that has gone into this really huge decision-making process. And throughout the next, year, 6 months, a year, however long it may be, we're going to continue to update what student athletes need to be doing in order to really make sure that they are still not breaking any sort of rules when it comes to NIL. It's still obviously a very much like gray area right now as far as having access to that. What does that really mean? What are we looking into? What does it mean for the NCAA? Where are things heading and everything else like that? We've seen NCAA make so many changes to the transfer portal within the past couple of years. I think they'll continue to do so. I think NIL is one of those things that they'll continue to hone in on a lot of different changes that they're going to be making from the policy perspective. And one of the big things with that is because they just lost that massive Supreme Court case. So I think that's really obviously what started this.
Absolutely. What are you seeing from students that go through the program? What's the feedback? What's the first thing that comes to them basically that they share with you?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is just that there's a lot of information that they didn't really know from the policymaking perspective. And I think it's helpful to have that context. And, it is definitely student athletes that are viewing it, that are viewing the content, but it's also agents and, people in Senate and policymakers and lawmakers and everything else that are trying to make these decisions as well. So we do have a lot of different people coming in, but when we're hearing from the student athletes, it's very much helpful for them to understand what it is that they're getting themselves into and what they have access to. I think, when you hear I have my name, image, and likeness, it's a great thing. And I think it's very overwhelming at the same time. And I think a lot of people just need to have help understanding what that really means and how they can kind of utilize that and how they can make the most of it as well.
Absolutely. And can you quickly go over a few things? Obviously, don't summarize, don't give us the whole contents of the course, obviously, but can you give us a few pointers that student athletes should basically look out for before they go ahead and monetize their name, image, and likeness?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is, which hasn't been officially clear yet, but is the use of agents. And I think that's not just for the NCAA policy perspective, but also who you're dealing with. I think a lot of times there's people who are okay with taking advantage of athletes or anybody really in a situation where they can make them a lot of money. So I think just understanding the dynamic between student athlete and agent is especially important.
Awesome. Keirsten, thank you very much. There's a ton of information to sort of sit down and absorb. And ladies and gentlemen, make sure you go out and check out the NIL Academy. Where can I find it, Keirsten?
Yeah, so as soon as you go onto the site, there's a big red bar across the top that kind of says, check out our NIL Academy just launched. So that is the number one place to go to, and it's a little in your face, but that's okay. So it should be easy to find.
Needs to be. It needs to
Yeah.
be. Absolutely. All right, Keirsten, thank you very much. I really appreciate you joining me. Any parting words?
No, I think if you're an athlete, just make sure you stay informed, whether you're using the resources at LRT Sports or SportsFinder or wherever it may be. Make sure that you're really doing the research before you kind of step into any deals and you kind of see what's happening in the landscape right now, because I think things will be evolving very quickly. Obviously, I don't think people expected it to be July 1st of this year. I think we thought it was going to be a battle for a couple of years, but I think that's definitely the number one thing that I would say is the takeaway, is just make sure you're doing your research.
Awesome. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Keirsten Sires, CEO and founder of LRT Sports. Thank you for joining me on
Thank
the
you so
business of
much.
NIL. Thank you. Take care.